Hey, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us again today for another session of Science Saves Sharks. I'm your host, Dickie Chibble, and today joining me again for the Q&A session from Wednesday is Kelly Baker. Hey, Kelly, how are you?
Hi, Dickie. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. So, guys, before we get started, our last chat was about the monitoring of great white sharks through observational and photographic data in Gansbaai, South Africa. And Kelly was telling us a bit about the research that she's doing, the methods about that research, and also what that research amounts to. But before we get started, I want all of you to remember that today is Endangered Species Day. Kelly, do you want to touch on that before we get started?
Yeah, of course. So today is the 15th annual Endangered Species Day. This is a day to raise awareness for endangered species. Now, here in Gansbaai, we are known as one of the world's great white shark hotspots, but we're also home to the Marine Big Five. And within those five, there are a number of species that fall under those animals that are or have been considered endangered before. But it's not all doom and gloom, or I don't want it to seem that way. I think it's also a day to really reflect on the work that's being done, the positive work that's being done to protect these animals or ensure their survival. For example, our African penguins and our African penguin and seabird sanctuary. And I think it's also a day to celebrate those species that have successfully been brought back from being deemed endangered, like our southern right whales here.
For sure, Kelly. Yes, guys. Like our southern right whales used to be critically endangered with only a couple of hundred of animals left. And now, the year before last, we had the highest whale count that we've ever had along the South African coastline. So there's definitely success stories, not to saying that there isn't a lot of conservation work still to be done. But Kelly, you're right. This isn't a doom and gloom day. We should be celebrating the fact that conservation can become a success, like with the southern right
Exactly.
whale. Yes.
Exactly.
Our Indian Ocean humpback dolphins, which we frequently see here, they are still estimated to be less than 500 of them left, unfortunately. And our African penguin is still critically endangered. But it's also time to celebrate the people that are working and in the front lines to be protecting and bringing this species back and taking them off the endangered list. But before we get started, Kelly, do you want to do a quick recap on what we spoke about on our previous session for the guys that weren't live with us on Wednesday?
Yeah, of course. If you want to watch the full session, it still is on our Facebook page, so you can see that live streaming in the video section there on Marine Dynamics. But really, what we talked about, or what I touched on, was the collection of data that is undertaken by the biology team at Marine Dynamics. That is the observational data, so we're logging everything that we see when we're out on the water, and then we spoke about the photographic side of things. So fin identification, using that unique trailing edge of the dorsal fin, ID the individuals, and then and work on the population as a whole. Now, if any of you would like to see the sort of studies that have been produced from such databases as our own, you can head to our Dyer Island Conservation Trust webpage, and you'll find the webpage down there. The address is at the bottom there.
Yes, guys, please always, if you guys want to check out dict.org.za, that link down there below, it shows some of our research publications as well as some of our conservation efforts, as well as just some of the really cool stuff that we've been doing. So please go check that out. But let's jump straight into the questions from Wednesday that we had on that chat. And the first one we got was from Will, and I got to answer my part of it, but you never did. And he asked which was our favorite great white sharks. Now, I mentioned that my favorite great white shark, his name is Bullet. He has a stunted fin and a hole in his dorsal fin from, hey, Aletta. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying you're the best. You're the best, Aletta. We miss you. So, guys, yes, so my favorite white shark's Bullet, a very energetic shark. But Kelly, you never got to say which is your favorite. So
Yeah, I got a little bit of time to think about this one, but I guess it shouldn't be too hard for us to pick. But in saying that, over the years, I have had a few favorites. A number of female great whites that have visited. We have two that our guest named. We've got Three Bird and Sarko, really energetic juvenile female great whites. And then, of course, there's the iconic females, Rosie and Scarlet. But currently, I would have to say it very much so. I would have to say currently, I would go for another of the Nemo sharks, so the sharks with the stunted pectoral fins, and it's one we spoke about last week. So it would have to be Mini Nemo at the moment.
Yes, great pick, Kelly. Great pick. Okay, why is Mini Nemo your favorite shark?
I must say that the behavior, like you mentioned about Bullet, they're very active sharks. But it also happens to be the fact that in the years that I've been with the company, I've seen and logged this animal at least once a year. So just being able to see this animal every year does make for a sort of a connection to that animal, or it does, get you excited to see those animals again and again. So it would have to be Mini Nemo.
For sure. I mean, obviously all sharks are awesome, guys, but for us in the field that get to work with them basically on a daily basis, there are just some sharks that will always have a special place in your heart. Hey, Jennifer, please come and join us one day, man.
Yeah,
come experience it. It would be really, really cool to take you out on the boat, show you some sharks, whales, wildlife, whatever we're seeing. Hey, Anik, thank you for saying we look great. It's a bit cold. I've got my jacket on today. So moving on to some of the next questions. Sorry, Kelly.
Quickly, hi, Nick. I'm just going to mention this is actually one of our previous volunteers. So thank you for joining us today, Nick. I would say she was with us probably about 5 years ago. So it's nice to see that you're still following marine dynamics and what we do.
Kelly. Like, guys, this girl's memory is insane. If you're not remembering sharks, you're remembering volunteers. Wow, man. Epic. So thank you for joining, Anik. So guys, on to the next questions. And before I hand this over to Kelly, because she's going to explain a bit more about this, we had a question from Andrew saying, are port and starboard still in the area? For those of you that don't know, port and starboard are two orcas that are pretty famous in our part of the coastline here in South Africa. And Andrew, I've got it written down here. They were spotted. We had a confirmed sighting in Simonstown just over 2 weeks ago, about late April. They were spotted in Simonstown. It's not to say that they're still there. You know, these animals obviously travel very far distances up and down our coastline, but they were still spotted just 2 weeks ago, more or less. So Kelly, I'm going to hand you over because the next question is also in relation to this, and it says, why are we seeing more killer whales in the Cape waters? Now, obviously, there are more sightings. So I'm just going to hand it over to you, and you can just touch up on that and port and starboard a bit more, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. So thank you for the questions, Andrew and Ulrich. So we'll touch on port and starboard first. For those of you that may not have heard about these two orcas, or perhaps haven't followed the story, these are two male orcas that are known along this coastline, and both of them have collapsed dorsal fins, one to the left and one to the right, hence the name port and starboard. Now, our history with these orcas in this area spans back to 2015. Now, I believe, Dickie, it was one of your tours you were taking when you first had eyes on these two male orcas.
Yes, it was actually, Kelly. It was an epic day. I'll never forget it. We were on our third whale watching trip for the day, making our way towards Shark Alley, which is just around between Dyer Island and Giza Rock, which is our seal colony. And we finished our whale watching. We're on our way to go show the people the seals, and Kira, our whale spotter, says there's a humpback whale. And I'm like, okay, cool. We're running out of time. We have another trip. Let's just go take a look quickly, because it's obviously, if you can get to see two whale species in 2.5 hours, I mean, wow, what an epic. So we get there, just see immediately, it's an ocean panda. We see it's an orca with a drooped dorsal fin. And at that time, it's still very rare to see orcas. That's the time when the sightings just started getting a bit more frequent, but it is still quite rare. So all of us were incredibly excited. We thought we were going to see a seal predation that day. Obviously, that didn't happen. But Kelly, you can lead us a bit more into the story behind what happened after those sightings of the first sightings of port and starboard.
Yeah, well, 2015, end of the year there, that was our first encounter with these two. And in the last 5 years, we have seen a slight increase in the orca sightings in our area, whether that be in the bay or just passing through, and whether that be port and starboard or perhaps another pod of orca. But I believe we have a video on our YouTube channel that explains a little more about these two and the area and interactions, etc.
Yes, guys. So if you guys also, Kelly, and for the rest of you guys, we will have a chat about the orcas specifically in another episode of Science Safe Sharks with our our senior biologist Alison Towner in upcoming shows. So please stay tuned for that. So we're not going to be touching too much on the orcas in this specific Science Safe Sharks episode. But if you guys want to see what port and starboard look like, see what they did to our white sharks, and just get a whole bit of a more perspective, we've got a really cool video on our YouTube channel. Kelly, you narrated it actually. About port and starboard. So if you guys go to the Marine Dynamics YouTube channel, go to the conservation tab, and the video will be there along with shark dissections. It's a very interesting video. I haven't watched it in a while, actually brush up on that. So guys, also when it comes to our YouTube channel, we just need a few more subscribers in order for us to start going live. I think it's 18 subscribers. And then once we can go live on YouTube, we want to take you guys live on Facebook, on YouTube, in the field. So we want to take you guys when we're tracking, tagging, doing releases on our tours. We want to take you guys live out in the field so that you guys can ask questions in real time and see the animals in real time. So please go check out our Marine Dynamics YouTube channel and hit that link and subscribe. It would be really, really cool if you guys do. And we would love to start streaming live in the field for you guys. Other than that, always, as I said, remember to check out dict.org.za if you guys want to help us out with any donations towards our African penguin and seabird sanctuary, which we also want to take live on our YouTube channel. We've got a comment from Luigi. We joined last summer and it was amazing. Great crew. Thanks, Luigi Brew. It was awesome having you. I don't remember the exact trip, but guys, for those of you that haven't been out with us before, I think Luigi is right. We always try our best to make it an awesome experience, and being out on the ocean is just amazing. So, Kelly, I don't see. Here's another question from Mark. I'll hand that over to you.
Oh, hi, Mark. So Mark's asking, when is the best months for great white shark sightings? Obviously, this does vary. We are very lucky here in Gansbaai that we have the chance to see these animals year round. However, saying that, over the years, every month is different. So we can really not pinpoint exactly when the best time would be. Dealing with nature and wildlife, of course, these things are going to ebb and flow. But for those of you that perhaps are interested in coming to visit us, I do highly recommend that you do follow our social media platforms. We're always trying to update. And of course, we do have on our website a daily blog. Now, unfortunately, at the moment, we're not going to sea, so that blog isn't being updated. But when we do go to sea, every time we go to sea, we do write an outline of what we saw for the day. So that just allows our guests on board to obviously refresh their mind on what they saw. But it's a really great tool for future guests to have a look and see how our sightings are going. So highly recommend following those platforms just so you can keep yourself up to date. Again, like I said, it does vary because we are dealing with wildlife. But thank you, Mark.
For sure. Yes, for sure, Kelly. So guys, also the blogs are very interesting if you guys want to go read up on our previous trip so you know what you can expect when you guys come to visit us when all this craziness is over. We've got another one from Isaac. I'm handing this one to you as well, Kelly.
Hi, Isaac. hope you are staying safe and the lockdown aren't hindering research too much. Thank you. I think we're all pretty safe and staying relatively sane at the moment. But hopefully we can get out on the water sometime soon to continue with the work that we are doing. And we will pass your regards on. Thanks for joining us today.
Yes, thank you very much for that comment, Isak, because it brings me to another point that is actually very important, that we've been wanting to touch on these sessions. And even though we're not being able to go to sea as much, our research and especially our conservational efforts with our African penguin and seabird sanctuary are still going full on. But obviously, it is not government funded, it is tourist funded. That's why we ask you guys to go check out dict.org, because we still have to keep on with these conservation efforts, like the penguin projects, especially because, as we said in the beginning, the African penguin is critically endangered. It's very important. Hashtag every single bird counts, guys. These birds could be facing extinctions, and we are on the front lines fighting for that not to happen. We've got housing projects. You guys can sponsor that. And donate a house for a little penguin. They love it. We'll be posting. You can check out on our YouTube again how happy these little penguins are in our houses. I know we're going to be posting a video later today on our Facebook that shows you these little houses for the penguins. So other than that, I'm not seeing too many other questions, Kelly. But while we're here, don't you want to touch on... Kareem has a question for you.
Thank you, Karim. For young students considering to study marine biology, what would be your best advice to guide them in their career? For students who are considering to actually study marine biology or to get into this field, I highly recommend, perhaps if you're undecided if it's really for you, to undertake some sort of practical internship or volunteer program. I think this is a really great idea for learning exactly what this sort of position would entail. So it just helps you to get a better idea of perhaps what you could be doing in the future. There's all position that perhaps seems a little bit glamorous to people, et cetera, but I think it's really important for people to understand exactly what they could be getting from it later on. Also, considering getting into the sciences, a passion is really necessary for it. So if you're already considering it, and if it has been some form of passion or fascination for some time, I highly recommend looking into it and perhaps pursuing it.
For sure. Hey,
Thank
good
you, Kareem.
answer, Kelly. You just got that straight up there. And well done for yesterday, Kareem, guys. Kareem went live yesterday with Sean Connery's granddaughter. I believe it was an effort. Saskia Connery. So thank you for doing that, Kareem, and it was great. As I said, we all have your back. Other than that, Kelly, I don't see any other questions in the live chat.
There is something I would like to touch on. So we did answer Andrew's question about port and starboard and if they are still in the area or have been sighted. So we touched on that, but there's also that question from Ulrich, and he's asking about the increase in orcas in Cape waters. This is a challenging question, just because the orcas in Southern African they're less well known than elsewhere in the world. Now you're looking at an animal along this coastline that generally is dwelling in the deeper waters, say off the continental shelf there. They're highly transient. So distribution wise, you could find these animals moving all the way up the west coast into Namibian waters, back down to the Cape waters, and then up the east coast to areas like Port Elizabeth. Okay, so they're always on the go. But you are right. We are seeing an increase in the sightings of orcas in the Cape waters, where they are still, it is uncommon or rare to see them. We have seen an increase over the last few years. So there's a lot of people sort of putting their thoughts forward as to why this may be. But I think at the end of the day, what we must look at is that there is a lot of factors a magnitude of factors that influence the movement of an animal, or perhaps a shift in their regular movements or previously known movements. For example, limited resources. This is something that I'm sure is going to be addressed in future studies to further the understanding of the orcas in Southern African waters. So that's something I'm sure will be touched on in coming years, but something that is quite challenging, a question at this present time. So
Cool.
Thank you, Ulrich, for asking. Lots of people would like to know. Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Ulrich. And as I said, we will be doing another session more relation towards the orcas around the South African coastline at a later date. But thank you. That was a very interesting question, and that was a great answer, Kelly. So, guys, I wrote this down before I forget. I know we're all super excited for tomorrow, which is World Fish Migration Day. I know everybody's got it marked on their calendars. Unfortunately, it has been moved to the 24th of October. So no more World Fish Migration Day. Boo-hoo. It has been moved to a later date. It's been postponed. Kelly, do you just want to touch on maybe one or two of the regular questions that we get on the boat?
Yeah, of course. When we're going out near daily, and we have a large emphasis on education on our trips, there's going to be a large amount of questions, and it does range. I guess we like to say there is no silly questions, but some of the major
Sorry about that, guys.
We like to encourage questions. Some of the major things that perhaps we touch on, or things that people ask, especially into relation to what we were talking to on Wednesday about observational and photo identification. We did touch on the trailing edge of the dorsal fin, how it's unique. A lot of people want to know, okay, how does this change throughout time? What could be the factors that influence the change? And we did speak about injury to slash fin's dorsal fin. So major injuries can change that fin, and other things that could influence the change in the trailing edge. It could be something as small as, say, attachments of parasites, so string copepods hanging onto that trailing edge, and it will break away that edge, the little fibers there. So you could end up with addition of little notches in the dorsal fin. So that could be an explanation for the changes we might see in the trailing edge. General wear and tear, those injuries we spoke about, it could be inflicted by another animal. You could have intra or interspecies interactions, so those sharks interacting with each other or perhaps with another species. And then, of course, unfortunately, it could be anthropogenic in origin, so that's human influence. You could see things like that actually influencing the trailing edge of the dorsal fin. So that's one of the main questions we sort of get pertaining to the dorsal fin and where the changes come from etc. A lot of questions about movements and migrations, very similar to what I said about the orca, the movements. Our white sharks are known to move up and down the west and east coast of South Africa, and we like to highlight our own telemetry program that does help us to learn a little bit more about the movements of white sharks in our area here, and with collaborative works up and down this coastline. But I think we have another comment coming through. It's from Anik again.
Okay. You want to handle this one, Kenny? You were talking.
Yeah, of course. It's quite interesting. She's just asked that because I just touched on the people wanting to know about their movements, where they're found, etc. And also you just mentioned Fish Migration Day as well, and this is perfect. That was Nicole. So that was a female great white shark that was tagged in Gansbaai, so in our bay here, and she actually migrated all the way to Western Australia. So one of the largest migrations on record for a great white shark, an indication of a transoceanic migration as well. So her tag, that was a PAT tag, and that popped off just off the more so northwest coast of Australia, near the Exmouth region, if anyone's familiar with that. And then that shark not only did she go all the way to Australia, she turned around and she came back to Gansbaai. She was resighted in the bay, and with the use of photo identification, so that fin identification that we're talking about, the team here was able to positively ID that animal and realize it was Nicole, and she had made a return migration of such a amazing distance.
There's a cute little story about that, Anik. Thank you very much for tuning in and for the question. A friend of ours, Richard Pierce, actually wrote a book about that shark. The book name, funny enough, is Nicole. So you can check that out. Yes.
Thank
is
you,
there
Mark.
a book about Nicole? Yes.
Yes, there is a book. Yes.
Richard Pierce, and the book's name is actually Nicole. So Joshua.
So Joshua's asking, what did you study at varsity and how many years? So I studied in Australia on the East Coast, where I grew up at a institute called University of Wollongong. So a total of 4 years. And I actually entered in biological sciences. And then towards the end of my studies, started to look or go in the direction of coastal systems and conservation.
Cool. Thanks, Joshua.
We've got another question from Mark. Thank you, Mark. Have you ever seen any seal predations by a shark on a boat trip? Dickie, have you got this one?
Yes, I've got this one. So, Mark, we've actually seen it quite a lot. Not as much in recent years, but we've actually seen it quite frequently and all around the bay. I have seen it breaching sharks, mostly behind Dyer Island, early morning, dawn and dusk, in the afternoon, but also within Shark Alley. That is the piece of water that separates our Dyer Island from our seal colony, Giza Rock. We used to have frequent sightings of white sharks there, and often we've seen seal predations happening there. So yes, we've seen that quite a few times.
I think we have to mention as well those predations on seals. It happens so quickly, and if you're not paying attention, you miss it, don't you? So that initial predation, and then it's sort of the action after it. So you've got to be right place, right time, looking in the right direction. But I guess our team
even with towing a decoy, it happens so fast. You're towing a decoy specifically knowing that this shark will breach, and you blink and you miss it, or you just see it and it's over so fast. You're like, wow, did I just really see that? Did I create that in my mind? I think
that highlights the amazing hunting abilities of these animals. Really, that's exactly what these guys are after, that ambush, that surprise approach. We have another question from Catherine. So she's asking, what's the largest great white shark you've seen in the bay? What's the largest for you, Dickie?
Well, I've definitely seen a shark that I would rank as over 5 meters, 5.2, I would say. I've seen large sharks. Some of the largest shark I've ever seen was in Guadalupe, but I've definitely seen a very, very large animal, possibly just as big here in the bay. I would say 5.2 year, and it was a pregnant female great white. It didn't spend a lot of time at the boat, but it blew my mind for sure.
We did have that large female in the bay in January as well, wasn't it? That we both got to see out on the water. A little bit shy, only maybe 2-3 days that we actually were able to log her, but huge animal. For me, yes, that time.
Yeah, she was beautiful. Wow.
For me, the largest great white shark I've seen would have to be Steam Train. She is one of our iconic white sharks. She goes back many years with the company. She was named Steam Train, back pre-2010, so she was already a sizable animal at that point. She was seen from that point up until around 2013, and then unfortunately 14, 15, 16, no logging of this animal. And then she reappeared in 2016, out of the blue, literally. And I think I think we were all a little bit speechless. just amazing. A huge shadow down deep. But when she hit the surface, we saw the true size of her, easily larger than our cage, our shark diving cage, which measures in at 5 meters. So this animal, like I said, easily larger than that 5 meters. We estimate her maybe around the 5.5 meter mark.
Yes,
Impressive.
well, I've seen a shark larger than 5.2 because I've seen Steam Train, and it's
Okay, there we go.
incredibly sized animal, like really, really massive.
Yeah, amazing. We've got another question from shout out to Ben as well. This is another one of our previous volunteers, and he's asking if Maureen has been sighted in recent years. Have you met Maureen, Dickie?
Yes. I wouldn't be able to answer this question though, because my dates are not. I definitely know which shark we are talking about, but I can't tell you of any recent sightings that I can just remember. Not fairly recent in any way.
Yeah, now Maureen is one of OCEARCH satellite tagged animals. So in 2012, there was a number of animals that were fitted with those satellite tags in the area or along this coastline, and Maureen was one of them. And she was actually seen quite frequently after that period. However, it has been a few years since we've logged Maureen. Off the top of my head, Maureen, I would say around 2016 for that animal.
Yeah, I wanted to say a few years.
Yeah. Generally, an individual would see around the island system here. So I would say winter 2016 for us.
Oh yes, I remember island times. Oh,
yeah.
how I missed that.
Island sharks, yeah.
Island sharks. So guys, there's more. Hey.
Okay, Dickie, I think you can answer this one.
For Shark Week this year.
Are you allowed to answer?
Thank you very much for the question. And yes, for sure. We've already shot some very, very cool. I obviously can't say too much about it, but we have had incredible encounters, and it was specifically for Shark Week for Discovery Channel that we have shot this year. And possibly, obviously, things are going. We don't really know how things are going, but there's definitely more stuff in the pipeline that we want to finish up possibly this year, but definitely have big plans for 2021 Shark Week as well. So check out Shark Week, guys. Check out Discovery Channel. Mostly Air Jaws. That's mostly the franchise I work on. Otherwise, yes, Brew, thank you very much for the question, and for sure, watch Shark Week this year because it's gonna be epic.
Okay, so it looks like a request from Russ here. It's been mentioned that the SA sharks have been seen as far as Australia, but have any of them been seen to migrate to the Great White Shark Hotspot of Guadalupe? Off the top of my head, I can say, Dickie, I know you have visited Guadalupe. However, there's no indication that there has been any link in recent years of a white shark moving from South Africa to the site in Guadalupe.
It's an interesting question, Rush, for sure, but I can't. I believe, Kelly, we can't really say for certainty. I've spent time in Guadalupe. I didn't personally recognize any of the sharks that we see here from there, but obviously that's not scientifically viable. So, but I can't tell you for sure from my side personally.
I think these sorts of things, it can be hard because we touched on the fin identification photos last week. Depending on which spot great whites are being studied in, the designated region that people are looking to study as a unique feature and identify the individuals and the population, it does vary. So, you have the pigmentation line along the shark where the dorsal surface, the grey upper side, meets the white underbelly. That pigmentation line is unique to each animal, and that is something that has been used in Australia and in America, etc. Whereas we use the dorsal fin. So it's really hard to sort of look at those things when we are using different features of the shark to make the identification. Furthermore, the tagging efforts, the telemetry programs are fantastic and they're just getting better and better. But, that data is also still limited. It's not every white shark that has a tracking device on it. So, yeah, unfortunately, we can't say there is that link between here and there.
Nature does sometimes surprise you. Nothing is impossible in nature. I've definitely, out of all my experience, guided a trip before where I tell people this will not happen, and then right in front of our eyes it does. But well done on answering that question, Kelly. Okay, Mark, again, along with great whites and copper sharks, what other species do you get to interact with? Kelly, I'm giving this one to you as well.
Yeah, of course, no problem. So thank you, Mark, for a starter, and this will be our last question of the night for the stream. But if you guys do have any other questions, give us a shout, and I'll get around to answering them. I'll answer them in our comments there. So the great whites, of course, is the species that we have been working with for the longest time, and of course now we do have the copper sharks or the bronze whalers that we do see more frequently as of recent times. There have been a number of other sharks that we have had interacting with our tours. For example, cow sharks. Whilst rare, and we only have a handful of sightings logged, we have had cow sharks approaching the boat, not for a long period of time, sort of to the surface, and then they disappear again. I was very excited in January after 6 years, and many of my colleagues seeing these sharks. I finally got to see one approaching. Around the vessel, though, it really is limited to those great whites and the bronze whalers. But we also do or have encountered blue sharks, also hammerheads. Exactly. Animals that perhaps don't interact with us so much, but we do see when we're out on the water. And Dickie, we also have the pelagic trips as well that involve the blue sharks and the makos, which are also amazing. Yeah.
Yes, guys. If you guys are ever coming down to South Africa and all this world pandemic stuff is over, definitely check us out at Marine Dynamics. Thank you very much for all the questions. We would love to take you out to sea. Also, check out our YouTube channel. We would love to take you guys out live. So subscribe, check out some of the videos. Once again, for the questions on port and starboard, we do have a video about them also on our YouTube channel. And just to link you guys up, it's under the conservation tab. So check that out. And thank you very much for all the questions, guys. Next week, who do we have up next week, Kelly?
So next week, my colleague will be joining you, Christina. So you guys will be having a bit of chat. I'm sure to tune in. So I hope everyone else will tune in and enjoy that.
Cool. And guys, if you guys have any questions for me, I don't use the Facebook, but you guys can check out my Instagram as well. It's just at Dickie Chivel. So just my name tag, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys have from my side as well. So thank you very much for joining, Kelly. Guys, thank you so much for watching.
Pleasure.
It was really, really cool. And Kelly, always nice chatting to you, man. Thank you very much, guys. Please keep safe, everybody. And thank you for tuning in to another session of Science Safe Sharks.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Dickie. It's been enjoyable. It's been nice to chat, especially about sharks at this current time when we can't be out on the water, having a look at them. So thank you. And thank you to everyone for tuning in.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for being so knowledgeable all the time, by the way, man. Thank you for helping me answer these questions. You're really, like, the dates, you nail them. I can never do that. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Bye.